The only daughter of a very wealthy man had died in an accident. The nurses wheeled the lifeless woman into the quiet dressing room, where bodies are cleaned and prepared before embalming. In the distance, the faint cries of her grieving family echoed through the hallway. Peter stood still for a moment. His heart was beating fast. Slowly, he walked to the stretcher and gently lifted the white cloth covering the body. What he saw made him freeze. The girl looked so beautiful. Her face was calm, like she was only sleeping. Her skin looked soft, her lips slightly open. She didn't even look like someone who had died. It was as if she would open her eyes any second. But what shocked Peter the most was her face. It looked familiar. He kept staring. Wait, I've seen this face before, he whispered to himself. His heart dropped. Who was she? Why did her face feel like a memory? Peter's hands started to shake. When he discovered it was her longtime lover, Mary. The hum of the cold chamber filled the room like a whisper of death. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly, casting a dull glow across the sterile morgue. Peter stood by the slab, his hands trembling inside thin latex gloves. His heart thudded in his chest like a funeral drum. He had seen hundreds of bodies. He had cleaned them, prepared them, embalmed them. That was his job. He was a monastery attendant, quiet, obedient, faithful. But never before had a face stopped him cold. There she was, Mary, the girl whose name he had not spoken in years, but whose memory had never once left his mind. Her face, still, serene, and heartbreakingly beautiful, lay uncovered on the table. Her skin, pale and cold. Her lips, slightly parted. Her long lashes resting like she was only asleep. Peter's breath caught in his throat. It can't be. Mary, the doctor had told him coldly. Begin the embalming. Time is ticking. Peter stood like a statue beside the cold steel table, his heart pounding against his ribs, his thoughts louder than the silence of the morgue. The doctor had just finished checking some paperwork and gently pulled the sheet back over her body. I'll give you a moment, he said quietly, then turned and left the room, the door closing with a soft click. The silence that followed felt eternal. Peter didn't move. He waited. He listened, to the absence of sound, to the heaviness in his chest. And when he was sure he was alone, he stepped closer. He stared at her for a long time, his eyes scanning every inch of her still face. Something in him refused to believe it. How could Mir be dead? His fingers brushed her cold hand, and that's when it hit him. A memory. The last time he saw her smile. It wasn't just a smile. It was the kind that reached her eyes, soft and shy, the kind that made his entire world slow down. She had been laughing at something foolish he said, her hand brushing his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. That smile, it was alive, warm, full of dreams and defiance and love. It was everything this cold, lifeless room was not. Peter shook his head slowly. No, you're not dead. His voice cracked. He leaned closer, his breath trembling. You don't smile like that, and just leave. Not like this. Not without me. His hands clenched into fists. He couldn't accept it. He reached out again, brushing a strand of hair from her face, gently, reverently. His thumb hovered over her cheekbone. You're too beautiful to be dead, Mir. Even now, you look like you're just resting. Like you'll wake up and tease me again. Like you'll call me a fool. His voice dropped to a whisper. Please wake up, please, just one more time. But when Peter looked at her, really looked, he couldn't move. Scene 2, Forbidden Memories. He paced. To the door. Back again. He looked around. No one was coming. Silence. The kind of silence that presses on your lungs. Peter returned to the slab and pulled a chair beside it. He sat. Slowly. Painfully. As if sitting down beside her was admitting to something he had buried for too long. If only they had let me love you. Peter remembered how Mary's family rejected him. How her father had sneered when Peter showed up at their house with flowers. You're just a monastery rat, he'd said. Our daughter is destined for more. She had cried that night. He had cried too. But life carried on. And now here she was, lying in his care. Cold. Silent. Alone. Tears rolled down Peter's face as he held her hand. It felt like wax, but it was hers. He wept. He prayed. And then a thought came. A dark, terrible thought. This is the last time I'll ever see her. No one will ever know. His hands moved. First hesitantly, then more boldly. He leaned over her, trembling. breathing heavily. Then he climbed on top of her, whispering her name. "Mary, forgive me." The world became quiet, as if time held its breath in horror. Then, her eyes snapped open. Peter froze. His heart stopped. Mary's lips moved slightly. Her eyes, confused. Still weak. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She barely understood where she was. Peter let out a scream that shattered the silence. He stumbled back, knocked over the stool. His trousers were halfway down, his gloves stained with tears and sweat. The door burst open. Nurses, orderlies, the head doctor. Shouts, questions, gasps. Peter couldn't speak. He pointed at Mary. She moved. She's alive. Tests were run. Records checked. Mary was misdiagnosed. She wasn't dead. She had been in a coma, and someone had signed her death certificate without proper verification. The hospital was in chaos. But no one could overlook what Peter had done. Even though his actions accidentally saved her life, his intentions were twisted, unholy, criminal. He was arrested, pants still half open, tears running down his face, mumbling her name as they dragged him away. Mary, now recovering, remembered nothing from the moment before her accident. But her family remembered Peter. The media? They would feast on it. Mortuary worker saves girl from embalming after attempting to violate her. Peter, hailed as a savior by some, and a monster by most. But the real question lingered. Why did Mary wake up when she did? And what if she was awake all along? The world turns on Peter. The courtroom was packed, not because of fame, but because of shame. The monastery attendant who supposedly raped a corpse, now turned miracle worker, was on trial. Peter Nwoke, once a quiet, faceless man who wandered hospital corridors and mopped blood off floors, now sat in a cold defendant's chair, chains biting his wrists. His eyes were hollow, his beard unshaven, his soul exhausted. Opposite him sat Mary, alive, breathing, eyes wide with the trauma of everything. Her parents sat beside her. The father's fists clenched. The mother sobbed. "He is a monster," her father shouted in the courtroom. He touched her when she was dead. Even if she came back, he had no right. He defiled a body. The judge banged the gavel, but the emotions couldn't be controlled. Peter didn't say a word, until someone whispered. If he had injected her, she would be gone. A nurse spoke quietly. The embalming medicine would have stopped her heart. She was in a coma. His delay saved her life. Now the courtroom began to murmur. Was he a rapist or a savior? But one voice was louder than all. Mary's husband, Martin's. "Your Honor, this man obsessed over my wife since childhood. She rejected him. We rejected him. He waited for her death and took his chance." The room went still. Mary sat in her hospital bed weeks after the incident, the force still taped to her skin. She had dreams. Strange ones. She remembered Peter's voice. His sobbing. His breathing. His tears. His trembling. She remembered feeling warm, even in the cold room. "Why didn't I wake up earlier?" she whispered. She stared at the news report on TV. Man accused of necrophilia saved girl from embalming. She turned it off. Days later, Mary surprised everyone. She showed up at the prison. She held a lunchbox. Rice and stew. No press. No cameras. Peter looked up from the corner of his dark cell. His eyes widened. "Why did you come?" he asked. His voice cracked. Mary didn't answer immediately. She placed the food down and sat beside the bars. "Why did you do it?" she asked, voice shaking. Peter said nothing for a long time. Then he finally spoke. "I've loved you since we were 16. They never let me near you. When I saw you in that room, I thought I had lost you forever. I lost my mind. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I wanted to feel close to you one last time. But I broke everything. Even the rules of heaven." Mary cried silently. She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just cried. Mary returned home to chaos. Martins, her husband, was furious. He called her weak, foolish, possessed. He told her, "If you dare speak kindly of that man again, you'll regret it." But Mary stood still. She remembered that night. Martins had drunk too much at the club. He was driving recklessly, ignoring her cries to slow down. The crash, the silence, the blackness. It was Martin's fault she ended up in the morgue. And now, he was the loudest voice condemning Peter?
Happy Hi Bestie. If you enjoyed this story so far, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment where you are watching from. Enjoy!
Mary filed for divorce. Her parents screamed, "You would leave your husband to defend the man who tried to violate you?" She didn't answer. She just packed her things and left. The court found Peter guilty of violating a body. He wasn't sentenced to death. Mary's testimony softened the blow, but he got 12 years in prison. He served 9 years and 4 months before being granted early release. During those years, Mary visited often. She brought him books. She brought him food. She brought him stories of the outside world. She told him that she had forgiven him, but she never said she still loved him. Not yet. When Peter stepped out of prison, the world had changed. He had aged, grown leaner, wiser, quieter. Mary was waiting for him outside the prison gates. Dressed simply. No makeup. No cameras. Just her. "Where will you go now?" she asked him. He shrugged. "I don't know. Come stay with me," she said. "Until you figure it out." He hesitated. "Is that right?" "It's not about right anymore. It's about what's left." 2 years passed. They lived together, not lovers at first, but companions. Peter got a job at a quiet library. Mary worked at a small hospital, counseling trauma patients. Then one rainy afternoon, she said it. "I still love you too." They kissed for the first time, not out of desperation, but out of healing. And when they finally decided to marry, her parents didn't fight. They were too tired, too broken by shame. And maybe, just maybe, they realized love doesn't always follow rules. It had been almost a year since Peter and Mary were married. Their life was quiet. Peter worked at the library. He loved the smell of old books. The silence. It gave him peace. Redemption. Mary worked in the hospital, now as a counselor. Helping others heal helped her breathe again. But something gnawed at her quietly, day after day. A secret she had kept even from herself. One night, Mary found an envelope slipped under their door. There was no return address. No name. Just one photo. A child. A boy, maybe 10 years old. Curly hair. Sharp cheekbones. Wide brown eyes that looked too familiar. Her hands trembled. On the back of the photo was a short message written in scratchy ink. "Ask yourself why he looks like Peter." Mary dropped the envelope. Her breath hitched. Her knees buckled. She knew exactly who sent the letter. Martin's. Scene 15, Confrontation. Mary didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. The hospital. The court. The prison. Her marriage. And that one night. Just one. Right before the accident. When she'd gone to Peter's house crying, drunk, hurting. They didn't speak. They didn't plan it. But it happened. Only once. And then she married Martins. The child was born 9 months later. Martins accepted him. But now this photo. This doubt. This fear. What if Peter is the father? Mary sat Peter down the next morning. "I need to tell you something." Peter listened quietly. He had learned to brace himself for pain. She told him everything. About that one night. About her son. About the photo. Peter sat still, the color draining from his face. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Because I didn't know. I didn't want to know. I was afraid it would break you." Peter stood up, walked to the window. He was quiet for a long time. "Where is he now?" "With Martins," she whispered. Peter's jaw clenched. The boy's name was Dammy. He was bright, curious, loved books like Peter did. Martins had kept him after the divorce, claiming that since he was the husband, he was the legal father. Mary had never fought back. She didn't want more pain. But now, she had to know. And so did Peter. They filed for a paternity test. The results came 2 weeks later. Peter was the father. Martins exploded. He stormed into the courthouse. Sued Mary for parental abandonment. Sued Peter for emotional manipulation. "You took my wife," he screamed in court. "Now you want to take my son." Peter remained silent. Mary was shaking. But the court ruled in favor of shared custody. Dammy would live with Peter and Mary for 1 month, then return to Martins the next. But Dammy didn't want to go back. "Dad is angry all the time," he told Peter. "He scares me." Peter didn't know what to do. His hands were tied by the law. But Mary was done being quiet. One night, Peter woke up to the smell of smoke. The kitchen window shattered. A fire had started. The curtains blazed. Flames licked the walls. Peter ran to Dammy's room, grabbed him, screamed for Mary, pulled her out too. They made it outside as the house collapsed behind them. The fire brigade arrived late. The house was gone. Later that night, a neighbor came forward, said he saw Martins near the house before the fire. The police opened a case. Peter, Mary, and Dammy moved into a smaller house near the outskirts of town. They were shaken, but together. For the first time, Peter had his son in his arms, in his home. "You're my dad, right?" Dammy asked him one evening. Peter swallowed. Nodded. Are you mad at me? Peter shook his head. No, son. You saved me. It had been months since the fire. Peter was settling into the new life, working part-time at a local bookshop, raising Dammy, loving Mary in quiet, steady ways. But one Sunday morning, as he walked through the market square with Dammy, he saw him. Brother Francis. The man hadn't aged a day, still wore the same brown robes, same sandals, same gold crucifix around his neck. Their eyes met. Francis gave a knowing smile. Peter, still burying secrets beneath the cold. Peter froze. Dammy looked up at him. Daddy, who is that? An old friend, Peter lied. But his heart dropped. Because Brother Francis was there the night of the embalming, and he saw more than anyone else ever knew. That evening, Francis knocked on their door. Mary answered. He introduced himself kindly, charmingly. I used to work with Peter at the monastery, he said. Just passing through. Peter didn't want to let him in, but Mary, always gracious, offered him tea. Francis looked around the small house. Looked at Mary. Looked at Dammy. You've built a life out of the ashes. Impressive. Peter sat down slowly, his eyes never leaving Francis. What do you want? Francis sipped his tea, smiling. Only to talk. About the truth. The full truth. Later that night, when Mary and Dammy were asleep, Francis stayed behind. He dropped the smile. Peter, that day in the morgue, you didn't just touch her. You kissed her lips. You whispered things. You wanted to stay in the cold with her. Peter gritted his teeth. I know what I did. And I've paid. Francis leaned forward. No, my friend. You paid for what they saw. But I saw what they didn't. I saw the darkness in you that day. And I know why you hesitated. It wasn't love. It was madness. Peter's hands trembled. What do you want from me? Nothing yet, Francis said. But if I ever need a favor, you'll do it. Or I tell the world what really happened in that room. Then he left. Peter tried to keep it from her. But secrets rot from the inside. One night, Mary found Peter in the living room, head in his hands, shaking. She made him tell her everything. What Francis saw, what he did, what he almost did. Mary didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, I knew. Somewhere deep down, I always knew there was more. But I forgave you for the part one saw. I'll have to forgive you again. Peter broke down. He held her like he would disappear. Just as they thought Francis was the only shadow left. Martins reappeared. He was gaunt, unshaven, burned on his right arm from the fire he started. He stood outside the school where Dammy studied. Mary arrived just in time. You can't keep me from him forever, Martins hissed. He's mine too. He's not, she said. He never was. Peter's a rapist. And you? You're his prisoner. Mary stood her ground. For the first time, she didn't flinch. Say that in court. You'll go back to jail for arson. Martins laughed bitterly. I'll see all of you rot. I swear it. A week later, Francis returned. Not with threats this time, but with proof. He had secretly recorded conversations between hospital staff, Peter, and others from years ago. Edited them. Twisted them. He threatened to release the tape online. A version of the story that would make Peter seem like a full-blown predator. I don't want money, Francis said. I want you to do something for me. Peter narrowed his eyes. What? There's someone in the monastery archives. A priest. He's hiding something I need. Get it for me. Why don't you do it yourself? Because unlike you, I don't have blood on my hands. Not yet. Peter was now caught between two devils. Martins, ready to destroy the family with obsession. Francis, ready to destroy Peter's soul with blackmail. Mary told him to go to the police. But Peter knew, the police protect no one once the press gets the story. Peter made a choice. He would return to the monastery.
Hi, bestie. Kunyafu hivi kumeshawa uruang. If you enjoyed the story so far, don't forget to like and subscribe for part 2. Comment where you are watching from and I will reply with my favorite emoji. Thank you.